So I will just kick this off and welcome everyone to an exciting episode 2 of Intentional Networking. Thanks so much for joining us this morning for our discussion of demonstrating our expertise. Something that's absolutely critical as we meet new people is helping them understand what it is we do and how we stand out from others in our field so that we can have introductions and referrals and all kinds of good networking going on around that. Our agenda for today will be to start with a review of this networking for life skill that we call demonstrate expertise. And then we're going to turn it over to Charlie, and we're going to give you opportunities to develop a concise statement of your expertise, see some examples of stories, and then give you homework, give you some tips for writing your own story and practicing your own story when we finish today, after we finish today. So before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to our annual sponsors for 2021. Prime Point, the HRMS and payroll folks, Marcia McLennan Agency, especially Tryon with our dear Anthony Carloso as a representative of Tryon. And then Penn State Great Valley, Truist, Focal Point Coaching, Training and Training Excellence, PMA, thank you, Charlie, On Time Edge, Harris Gubin, who is a franchise coach, Tonbo Visual Promotions, Fred Taffer, and EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So once again, welcome to the second session of Beacon Navigator and Beacon U. And for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, I want to give you a quick introduction to Beacon Navigator. And I hope I don't bore anybody who's already heard this spiel before. But Beacon Navigator and Beacon U are our way of sharing the unique networking expertise of Beacon's most successful networkers. We all know that Beacon networking is unique, and we set out on some research to define exactly what that unique style of networking looks like. And we did that by learning from Beacon members who are among some of our best networkers. We gathered stories from those folks, and you're going to hear some of those later in the presentation. And we gathered them from people in corporate seats, members in corporate seats, members who are in business for themselves, and members in transition. So the skills really cover all of our constituents, all of our member constituents. From those stories, we found that what makes Beacon networkers so unique is that they're connected, they're curious, and they're purposeful. We captured the results of all of this research in something that we're calling the Beacon Networking GPS. It's a guide in which we've defined each skill, and I'll talk a little bit about those skills, and we've cited specific examples of the behaviors that Beacon members demonstrate in applying those skills. So it really is a GPS that you can use to enhance your networking comfort level and your success by adapting the behaviors to fit your particular situation. The networking skills that you'll find in the GPS are the skills that Beacon's intentional networkers use to get the most from their networking efforts. So you may never grow to love networking, but understanding and practicing the Beacon way of networking, that is applying these skills, will make you an intentional networker, and it will increase the value of your investment, the VOI, in your networking efforts. So there are 8 skills in the GPS, and we've been going through them. We started in November with Exhibit Generosity of Spirit. Today, we're talking about demonstrating expertise. And in January, on our January 12th presentation, we'll be talking about acting as a liaison. So we see this as a series of workshops that we hope you'll all be interested in attending, and they'll all be on Zoom. So each one of these skills is defined, and there are examples of effective behaviors in the GPS. And later on, after the session, Zoe will send an email with the slides and a link to the GPS. So I'm now going to turn it over to Charlie to get the interactive portion of this going. I'm done blabbing away. Take it away, Charlie.
Thank you very much, Pat, for the introduction. Am I sound okay? Everybody hear me? Welcome you all. This is going to be fun. It's going to be very interactive. There's going to be Zoom rooms that you'll go into with some of the other folks on the call. We're going to build these statements, what I call expertise statements, together and share them amongst the group to see the progress that we're making. Listen, we all have a story to share. Sometimes that story is huge. But when we're networking, we don't have the time to share a huge story. Not because it's not worthwhile, it's just time limitations. So today what we want to try to do is how can we demonstrate our expertise in under 15 seconds to get the attention of the other party to start that conversation that's going to result in them trusting us enough to advocate for us. Many of you on the call are looking for a new client. Some are looking for a new employer. We need strangers to become our advocates. And the purpose of today is to try to get all of us to have a better way of getting those folks to understand the expertise that we bring to the table.
Charlie, I would just quickly add there that this is an important skill for people within companies as well, to demonstrate your expertise to your peers outside of your own particular silo so that they begin to collaborate with you and share information with you and come to trust you.
For some of you, 2022 will be the beginning of a new job in a corporation or new clients. They're going to check you out. Probably they'll go to LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a place where you can demonstrate your expertise to give them a sense of the value that you can deliver. What we're talking about today is when you're having a conversation with somebody, how can we demonstrate that expertise rather quickly? So when do we have this opportunity to demonstrate expertise? All of you at one time or another has put your expertise down into a resume. Some of those resumes are 3 or 4 or 5 pages long. Others are only 1. Size doesn't matter. Websites. Some of you have websites for your business, your consulting practice, and all of you have a LinkedIn profile. So that's one place to demonstrate expertise. One-on-one conversations. That's what we're going to focus on today. Live webinars, presentations, where you are sharing with colleagues and potential prospects the value that you can deliver through the services you provide. In conversations, we can offer insights, trends, strategies, tactics that reveal to people we know what we're talking about, we're up to date on what's going on in our industry. And finally, telling stories is a wonderful way to have people appreciate the depth and breadth of our expertise. Here's an example of what expertise sounds like. This is Marshall. He's a leadership coach. As a leadership coach, I work one-on-one with successful leaders of growing companies to achieve lasting change. I believe an aligned leadership culture generates profits. So I'm committed to installing positive behavior change for senior leaders, their leadership teams, and their people. Recently, we finished a 12-part leadership development program for a biotech company that is already dropping significant money to the bottom line. So just a show of hands. Does this gentleman demonstrate expertise with this particular statement, which probably took 15 seconds to get across? Are we curious about this individual? Do we want to know more? Is this the kind of person that we may want to refer to somebody in our network, somebody within Beacon? Here's Walt. He's a commercial lending officer. That's his title. I believe thriving small businesses are the prime generators of job creation, economic stability, and the future of our community. So I work with small businesses to find the right funding source to grow their EBITDA line so they can scale their company an average of 12% year over year. Pretty astounding numbers. But what can back this up? but he wanted to grab your attention. He wanted to hook you, to have you lean in, raise your eyebrows, be intrigued, so that you listened. Leslie, now she's the chief of medical operations. What she says is, I keep the company moving forward, serving patients and dwarfing the competition. I find problems before they are problems. It's at the heart of inquisitiveness, to continually think about how to make things better, seeing around corners, like our last project, creating processes to support the emerging patient growth of our practice. So again, what do we learn about Leslie in a very short period of time? Is she somebody to be taken seriously? Does this sound like it's been made up? Does this sound like it's based in fact and reality? One of the things that we need to do when we're putting our very short statements together, which we're going to do this morning, is we have to figure out what's uniquely authentic about ourselves and avoid what I call the fog of you, the infinite number of words we use to try to describe who we are, what we do, and the value that we deliver. I call that infobesity. There's too much of it. I hear it when I'm on these networking meetings. Connie and I were on one yesterday, and many of the people, they use too many words to describe themselves in a simple way. I don't know about you, but when people don't have a lot to say, they use a lot of words. These statements need to be conversational in nature, not corporate speak. If you look at many people's LinkedIn profiles, corporate speak is all over their about section. We don't get a sense of feel of them, their personality, what they stand for. When we're conversational, people understand what we're saying. They're not using industry language that excludes us because we don't understand what they mean. Conversational language helps us be specific, vivid, and positive. So here's what I call the expertise statement. It's made up of two components designed to put in the mind's eye of your contact a picture of you as an expert. The first stage of that framework is, what do I do well? Now, many of you are not a one-trick pony. You wear lots of different hats. You do many different things. But what is it that you do well? What is it that you want other people to remember about you so they can pass that on to their networks? And the second part of the statement is evidence, proof of the facts that you've just shared. And it's delivered in a way that encourages inferences about your character, your competence. People learn about our character and our competence indirectly, not directly, in a networking situation. Words we choose can either energize and move the conversation the way we wish or not. These statements have to be carefully rendered, practiced, prototyped before we start to use them. And that's what we're going to do today. You're going to get a shot at this today. Sample, here's one. I get to the root of what leaders truly need to know to make informed decisions. In June, I simplified a complex, recurring operational issue and gave my client, the COO, a fresh perspective, enabling her to deploy resources that moved the needle. What do we learn about this person from this very simple statement? So shout outs. Anybody in the audience can shout out. What does this say about this individual? Anyone?
She was able to help the COO get unstuck and move her company forward.
She's really good relationship skills.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
She's a problem solver.
Well, she's got to be a good listener too, because she gets to the root of the problem, what a leader needs.
There we go. Good. What else? Two more.
Sounds like an operational excellence person.
There we go. But Maria, that's jargon, isn't it? Operational excellence?
Yes.
And she got the same point across without using those words.
Yep.
If the response to this statement is, well, that's cool, tell me more, then we can start to get into some of the industry language that also suggests to people we know what we're talking about. We've been there. We're familiar with what's at the cutting edge of business today. Thank you. Here's another one. The job title for this person is, hey, I'm a senior portfolio manager at CXST Technology Partners. I don't know what that means. But if it's stated this way, I make sure complex enterprise-wide technology products stay on target and budget. At a growing healthcare system in Delaware, we integrated 3 different data systems into one platform, and all departments now support the new configuration. What does it say about this individual, their expertise, their competence? Again, shout outs from the audience, please.
They can deliver.
Can get all stakeholders on the same team. Everything moving in the same direction.
Any of you that have worked on these large projects across the enterprise understand that there are pockets of resistance. There are naysayers. There are yes but people that have to be contended with and dealt with in order to move the project forward. I would sense that this problem existed for this individual as well. What else? Other ideas? We'll move on. What signals expertise? The occupation, title, industry, and company that the person mentions? Or their capabilities and talents? This is not a rhetorical question. When you listen to people talk in networking meetings, they want to tell you what their occupation was. They love to tell you their title. They want to tell you the industry or industries in which they've operated and some of the name brand companies they work for. I suggest to you, does that mean they have expertise?
No.
Absolutely not.
Yes, no, not at all.
And what do their capabilities and talents tell us? Remember, the goal is for us to refer them to somebody. And I'm going to be comfortable having to refer a title or people that have capabilities and talents that may move the needle for my network. People in my network, whether it's a client, whether it's my own employer. What might it be? So we must try as best we can to try to avoid occupation, title, industry, and company in the opening statement we make. Later on, you can weave it in, especially if they ask. If they don't ask, you keep moving because it's not important to the listener. So what I do well, here's a list of some of the things that people do well depending on their responsibilities and the authority that they have. Just take a moment and go over these. Because what I'd like you to do is pick 3 or 4 that you think apply to yourself. Take a few moments. Jot them down because you're going to be writing in a few minutes. And these may be good thought starters for you. And add any others that are in here that you think are relevant for your situation. If you need more time, let me know. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Just 3. Carly, give me 1 more second.
Yes, Susie, go ahead.
Just to scan the next column. Got it. Thank you.
Moving on. See, I just want to share with you what my strategy is when I network for the first time with someone that I haven't met before. This person may have come to me by way of referral, or I may be in a Zoom room with them and decide to have a one-on-one at a later time. My role is to try to convert them from being a stranger, we don't know anything about each other, turning them into an advocate. I want to be an advocate for them, and I'd like them to be an advocate for me. But what do I need to know? What do I need to be comfortable with in order to do that? I want to try to build trust to create a long-term relationship. I try not to think transactionally. And for many of us, that's hard because we've grown up in a transactional world when we're in corporate America or in some of the jobs we've recently had. And the idea is to think in terms of longer term and relationships, because it's on those relationships that we can depend at inflection points in our career. I want to demonstrate that Charlie consistently delivers tangible value for his ideal audience. I want the other party to realize that what I have to offer is of value to them and to their network. I want them to experience that in our meeting, which means I'm giving a lot, I'm sharing a lot during the meeting. And finally, I want to make sure that I identify who my relevant strategic partners are. We all know, those of us that have our own businesses, we can't do it alone. We need to do it through the help of other people who are relevant to us, who share our values, who see the world the way we do, who serve us the way we do. So, this is a statement that I made up relative to this particular meeting. What do? Operating as a human archaeologist, I help clients in transition to uncover their superpowers, share their authentic personal brand, and execute a strategic marketing plan to attract ideal prospects. What's the evidence that I can do that? In Q3, I guided 3 clients to leverage their LinkedIn networks, launch targeted email campaigns, and grow their pipelines by an average of 45 new referrals, 15 active prospects, and exploratory interviews with 9 real opportunities. I proved that my clients' difference matters to their prospects. Hi, I'm Charlie Timmons. I'm the owner of PMA. We're a marketing firm in King of Prussia. We've been in business for 20 years. Totally different feel to it. Because the goal is to connect with that person as quickly as possible to get them to feel me as well as understand me. Here's another example. If you were at a networking meeting and said, tell me about yourself. You said, well, I'm Todd. I'm in finance. Okay. Todd may say it differently. Hi, I'm Todd. I'm the guy who figures out how to find the capital to fund the construction of long-term care facilities. I recently had my tax team check out all the tax implications of building in each Maryland county. I just updated the CEO on how our positive findings can accelerate our expansion plans. What do you think is important to that CEO? And how did Todd answer that need that CEO had? What do we learn about Todd? Well, my first impression was that he facilitates informed decision making. Leaders want to have the facts before they make decisions. They want to minimize risk. Todd addresses that from a numbers perspective. It also suggests that he may be a valued member of the executive team. He belongs in the inner circle. He's not a lower level staff person. Very important that people position us properly in their minds when we're talking to them. What else do we learn about Todd? Shout outs from the group, please.
He manages people well.
Pardon me?
He has a team and he seems to manage them well.
All right, team management. Okay.
And he's also proactive in thinking ahead.
What else do we learn about him? Thank you, Leslie.
Well, he took a holistic view and said, if Maryland's our target, let's look at every opportunity and then figure out for the CEO, what are the specific financial impacts? I mean, that's the kind of data that the CEO needs to make that kind of strategic decision. They're going to invest billions of dollars. Let's do it right.
Do we open up in Prince George's County or Harford County? Which county is best for us to make our initial investment in the state of Maryland? Well done. Thank you. Here's another one. Hi, I'm Jeremy, and I'm a marketing consultant. Somewhat nebulous, means many different things to different people. Many of you have been on these Zoom calls where people identify themselves this way. The first thing that comes to my mind is, where do you play along that spectrum of marketing? I'm a little confused. He starts out by asking a question, which I think is an interesting way to introduce yourself. How does your organization get the word out about their products and services in order to get a quick uptick in sales? So again, if you're going into the fourth quarter, you want to get a quick uptake in sales to finish the year out strong. That's the implication. Hi, I'm Jeremy. Last month, I wrote a news release that got one of my clients, a bankruptcy attorney, on page 1 of the Baltimore Sun's business section. In 3 days, she's gotten 7 calls from prospective clients. Wow, they've gotten results. Is this evidence of his expertise? So what do we know about him? What do we learn about Jeremy? He knows how to make the client's phones ring. Very important in marketing. What's going to get the phone to ring with the right prospects that are correct? And he understands what his clients' prospects need to hear to motivate picking up the phone or reaching out through email. Other things that you may have learned about Jeremy, please share them.
I think he's got to be pretty well connected, because it isn't easy to get news releases to be picked up. So people know him. He's got a good network of people in media.
I think the question is a very effective one of opening up with a question. In my opinion, that triggers opening up further conversation.
Great point, Taylor.
Different slant.
Exactly correct. Other insights relative to this person's expertise? Because again, what you are all saying is implicit in what he's saying. It's hidden, it's behind the scenes, it's implied. We're getting maximum return on every word we use. And the less words we use, the more powerful it may become. So what are some of the best practices around these expertise statements? You want them to build interest and create curiosity. You want people to ask you questions like, tell me how you did that, or what have you learned with other clients? They want to engage that particular person around your expertise, because that's where you're safest. That's what you know best. And that's what's going to turn them from a stranger into an advocate. You want to share your talent, not your title. Many of you know that a director in pharma is different than a director in an insurance company. Different titles, different industries, different levels, different amounts of authority and responsibility. So the important thing is to focus on the talent. Avoid industry jargon as much as you can in the initial portions of these statements. Ask an intriguing question like Taylor said. Hey, it opens up the conversation. Try it and see how it works. Write tight, sparingly. The less words, the better. Chunk it down into the essence of what you're trying to say. And be specific. The more confusing you are, the less there's engagement with the other party. They'll tune out very, very quickly, because they're going to make assumptions that are not correct about you, but the words you used, how you did it, cause them to doubt. Here's Jenna, describes herself as an organizational development specialist. What does she do well? Hi, I'm Jenna. I work with business teams that are falling apart. Doesn't sound like a job title to me, but the teams are falling apart. Last week, I led a retreat of our 18-person leadership team, who were so relieved to find out how to get our 4 generations of employees to work well together, increase productivity, and reduce attrition. Wow. All done through a leadership workshop. That's incredible. So what did we learn about Jenna? Maybe she relates well with senior leaders. Maybe she knows how to link these intergenerational practices together to get things done. And she understands the business benefits of OD practices. This is not a waste of money to invest in OD. Getting it to work, that's what Jenna does. Other things we learned about Jenna from the group. What did you observe?
Good communicator, has emotional intelligence.
Well done. Who else?
She knows what's important to her senior leaders for success.
There we go. And you can imagine, you have a retreat. That's more than 1 or 2 days probably. This is a big topic to cover with these people who have this problem of saying, wait a minute, people are leaving. We're not getting them work as hard. We're not getting as much done. Complicate that with COVID. Big problem for a lot of different companies. Is this the kind of person you might refer to somebody in your network if you realize they're having some of the same issues? And the reason you would refer this person is what Jenna says, what she communicates about herself. Here's Gunther, a global financial advisory specialist with the Department of Commerce's Region 2 Stabilization Outreach Team for Corporate Development. Now, when you hear somebody introduce themselves that way, what goes through your mind about this individual?
They get paid by the word.
What else goes through your mind?
What's he talking about?
There we go. So, lost at hello. So, but this is how he describes himself. Hi, I'm Gunther. I work with clients who are buying or selling businesses across international borders. Last quarter, my team and I helped a Dallas-based pet food chain buy 24 stores in the Netherlands. I don't know how many words that is, but this guy's good at what he does if he was able to do that in a quarter.
Right.
So what did we learn about this guy? He's a business-centric bureaucrat. There were my words. Business-centric bureaucrat. Because again, that title says this guy's a bureaucrat. We're not going to move very fast here. The other thing I learned is he simplifies the complexity of global transactions. Any of you that deal on a global basis know how complicated that could be, how things could get bogged down. He also orchestrates the many talents of his team to address the many moving parts of an international commercial endeavor. What else did we learn about this gentleman? I'm curious.
He's got to have connections. He's got to have a lot of global experience, even to know where to start on something like that.
He's a no nonsense, get the job done kind of guy.
All right.
And even though he's a bureaucrat, if he did that in a quarter, he moves faster than most bureaucrats.
Right.
Especially in the economic climate we find ourselves in now, where, we've had a stalled economy, we've got to speed it up. Anything he can do to help the businesses in the United States grow is a positive thing. The government is working on behalf of business people. That's what comes out of this. The government is there to help, and this guy delivers. So the content of the expertise statement, in that first component, what I do well, talks about a skill, a talent, or a competency that you have. Earlier I told you to pick 2 or 3. The evidence is what proof can you offer to support your memorable statement? Short, sweet, outcomes, results, benefits. Very short. For example, here's some examples. You saved the day, you saved money, you served the client, you solved a problem, saved time, or you made money for the organization. So again, very short, brief evidence. Now, if we go back to Gunther, my question is, how did you get that done? Now I have a conversation. Now Gunther has me engaged with him. And he's demonstrating his expertise and competence in much greater detail. So I really get a better feel for him. But if he didn't state it the way he did, he might not have pulled me in and got my interest. And that's what we want. We want them actively engaged in us because they want to be engaged with us. It's not about what we want, it's about getting them to become engaged. Any comments, questions at this point? Any clarifications required? You got a great audience today, Pat. This is great. So I want you to create your own expertise statement. We're going to stay in the large room, and you're going to work quietly. We'll hear your brains working. We'll feel the heat. Create your own expertise statement. And I'll leave this up on the screen so you can refer to it as we are spending the next 6 minutes to do this. What might yours sound like? Now, when you're finished, what I'm going to do is put you in Zoom rooms so you could share it with the people in the room. And I want the people in the room to help you massage it, refine it, make it better, elevate it so it's much more impactful than the original rendering. It's just the way things are. First drafts tend not to be our best. So have at it. Zoe, you're on the clock, 6 minutes. Would you give them a 2-minute warning so that they can be prepared to go into the Zoom? Okay. It is not easy, believe me. I was on I participate in a beacon-like group that's out of Dallas, Texas, and very, very accomplished people. And every meeting starts with people giving what they call their elevator pitch, right? And I remember the second time I was there and I gave mine, somebody said, "That was very good. How long did it take you to write that?" And I thought for a minute and said, about 25 years. We constantly refine what we have to say. We find the right words that we're comfortable with, or that make us authentic. None of us want to be phony. None of us we don't want to sound like we're bragging. So it takes time to find the words and put them in an order that we're comfortable with in order to demonstrate our expertise to others. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into Zoom rooms. And for how long do we say?
We could do 12 minutes.
Why don't we do 10?
10? Okay.
How many do you have in each room?
Most have 3, one has 4.
Okay, so it's going to be very hard to hide here. So you're going to have to share with everybody what you have. The goal is to have your Zoom roommates help you refine. Ask questions. What do you mean by that? Why that word? Why do you have it in that order? Whatever you want to do, help them make it better because you're the audience they're trying to reach. And if you don't get them, if you don't understand them, if you don't feel them, you may not be able to help them. So why don't we do this? Go into Zoom rooms and we'll be back here in 10 minutes. Now when we come out, I'm going to ask each room to pick someone from their room that had the best expertise statement and share it with the group, because I'd love to hear how you are all doing with this. Zoe, over to you. Welcome back.
Okay, so
all
Heather,
right.
you okay? You okay with the last minute decision? That's okay. You got it.
Oh, Charlie, Bruce got short shrift. He only got like 30 seconds because
It's okay.
Well, you guys are going to go back into the same room again in a few minutes.
Good.
All right,
Oh,
and then you could give him as much time as he wants.
Good. He's
Okay.
going
Right.
first.
There we go. All right. So, what did we learn? I just want people to give reactions to the exercise they just went through. Good, bad, or indifferent.
We all talk too much.
There.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. What else? Come on.
Hard to.
3 people in our room, 2 people other than myself did do similar work, even though we have different job titles.
Huh.
I was in that room and I couldn't tell that you were the same. So you differentiated yourselves from the other. That's wonderful. Good observation. Who else?
I think the importance, Charlie, of getting facts to support your position, matrices, and how difficult that is depending upon your position, the position of yourself and the position of the company in today's market. As some people are just starting up, some people are in different positions other than ownership. So that's a challenge, one that I think we need to continue to work on.
Sometimes I recommend to people, you may not have one fantastic piece of evidence, but you can create one made up of many, like an example. Because nobody's going to call the thought police and check you out. You're trying to get people to appreciate what you might be able to do for their network, for them.
But Charlie, that's really difficult in many cases. As we all got back, that less is more. When you want to keep this thing brief,
right?
You know, how do you do all that in a few words?
All right.
Particularly when you're not a spring chicken.
Watch your step. Watch yourself.
Yeah, really.
But we don't have 25 years like Charlie said it took to get his to perfection.
Well, yeah.
I know where you live, Fisher. Fisher, I know where you live. So why don't we do this? How many groups do we have, Zoe? Zoe,
sorry, there were 8 groups. 8.
All right, so let's just go around to the different groups and have them select somebody or volunteer somebody. That's even better. Volunteer somebody to offer the first version of their expertise statement. Okay, Maria, I'll volunteer Maria.
Oh, okay.
Has Maria accepted that?
Where is
she?
she?
Still muted.
She's on mute. Maria, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Maria, your family loves you on mute. We don't want you on mute. Go ahead.
Charlie, I know where you live, so. All right, here we go. I work with C-suite executives and of Fortune 500 companies to increase satisfaction, increase customer satisfaction and productivity of their team. Let's see. I facilitate workshops to identify issues, do root cause analysis, and provide options for improvement. In Q3, I increased employee satisfaction by 10%, increased productivity, and brought $500,000 to the bottom line profits.
Okay, so Connie, what's the first question you would probably have for Maria, given her statement?
I don't have a question because I was bad and I was looking at my own stuff, thinking about. I wasn't listening. I apologize.
Bruce, what would be your first question for Maria?
The size of the company,
okay.
The number is nice, but depending on the size of the company, may be insignificant or a major thing. Jody, what would you ask her?
I don't exactly understand what you're doing. Can you simplify that for me?
Okay. What else? Who else? Questions for Maria based on what she presented? My question would be, how the hell do you do that? How do you make that happen? Right, in a short period of time. That's amazing. So if I'm a leader and I want to get that kind of result from my organization, I say, how do you do that? Right, and that's what you want. You want that engagement between you and the other party, because what they're going to ask you about is important to them. You don't have to guess what's important to them. They're going to tell you through their questions. All right, let's go to another group. Who else wants to step forward?
Charlie, you might want to go in order. That would make it easier to manage.
I don't have the order. I don't know what the groups.
No, group 1, group 2, etc.
Oh, okay.
Group 1 was Bob, Heather, and Patrick.
All right.
Okay, so I accept my group's challenge or mission, the mission. So I'm a CPA. I see errors as opportunities to uncover and solve broken processes or training needs. This perspective reduces time wasted on administrative operations. So now that's my stop, timeout. I need to find the best example of that because it's something that I do weekly. And that was the suggestion of one of my group members, Patrick, that I'm not doing this and finding the great, big bang of an example, but it's something that I live and I do weekly. I'm always finding things for that continuous process improvement, as Bob suggested. So that's where I need to do some work and find a good example or work in that language about I do it weekly.
Okay. Next group, Zoe.
Next, we have Connie and Taylor.
Taylor, go ahead.
Being firm believers that less is more, it was just Connie and I in that group of ours. And we bounced around a lot of ideas. Connie, do you want to kick off a few things from your end and then I'll jump on board?
Well, I said that, so I'm in business development. So I connect with people to introduce the benefits of 1031 exchanges and my company 1031 Corp. But what what we do, what 1031 Corp does, is help clients preserve their capital investment by deferring their taxes from one real estate investment property, income producing property, into the next.
And what evidence do you have that you're good at that?
Well, that was the struggle. I went on to say we consult with our clients on whether to do the deal, whether their deal qualifies, and we educate. We produce all the documents. We alert all parties of the critical dates and time hurdles, and then manage the banking process. I guess the evidence it would be the repeat clients and referrals. We have.
I would suggest, Connie.
I don't have the numbers. Like I don't have that data right now, and so I'm writing notes, going, okay, I need to caucus with. I report to the president of my company. These are the informations that I need to go back and get from her in order to be able to, I don't have the data because I'm not in operations. I'm in the front end of the.
Yeah, if you told somebody that you and through your organization you saved clients X million dollars last year, that's the way to really get them to lean in.
The other thing I'm thinking is your target probably for all of us, our business extension is not likely to come from the person we're directly talking to, but from their network. So if I can get something like, I help real estate investors save money, and here's an example, that's going to catch my attention. The 1031 I'll probably forget, and I don't know what it is, but the fact that you help investors save money on their next investment decision, which is what I'm taking, is the thing that I can then reference you because of that to someone I'm speaking to who has in that business, because I'm not in that business.
Right. So we preserve the capital investment, but that could be different for each client depending on the size of the deal.
Okay, that's true. But you're not making any guarantees. You're saying, in general, this is what we do. We make sure the money stays with our clients and doesn't go to the government. That's basically what you're saying, right?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next group, Zoe.
So I'm going to defer to Fred to go over his, because I'm in a unique sort of pivoting situation, and it was just obviously it was just the two of us.
Yeah, well, it was just the two of us. For my purposes, I picked up some language I've been refining for some years, saying essentially, I'm a lawyer. I practice technology and intellectual property law. Working with mostly tech companies. Recent examples of work that I do include helping a tech company that provides software as a service, negotiate and sign a contract with a large international company to provide that service in the US and in Europe. How's that as an example?
What were the benefits of the work you did?
The company was able to essentially close the deal and provide the service.
So the last two things you said could be your entire statement. So I work with, you give the type of law you do, but then that next to the last statement you made, Fred, what was that?
I helped them negotiate the contract and provide the service.
Help me out, group. Help Fred.
That it was an international contract, or did I miss that?
That was an international contract.
It was close the deal.
Close the deal.
Get the work.
Close the deal.
Close the deal.
That's the point. And
in any time period, you did that in 6 months, 6 days.
That contract was done over 2 weeks. Other contracts had been 2 or 3 years.
Say, I'm Fred Wolf. I'm a technology attorney, and I save my clients time. And then you tell the story of how you did something in 2 weeks instead of 6 months. something along that. Fred, you have it within you. The problem is we live with this stuff every day. It becomes part of what we are. It's hard for us to separate it out and see it as distinctly different. That's the issue. That's the purpose of the exercise. How do we bring it up and isolate it so that we can connect with people in a very simple, direct manner? Thanks for putting your neck out there, Fred. Next.
Don't you also save them money in billable hours if you got it done in 2 weeks, like shorter time, time and money?
Yeah. Sure. I can add that too.
And I want to publicly let everybody know Fred won an award, didn't you, Fred? Recently in the Philadelphia Business Journal, didn't they say something nice about you?
That was nice of them. I've been listed as part of best lawyers for the past 10 years now, and for Philadelphia Business Journal, we're just listed as one of a substantial number of intellectual property lawyers, intellectual property law firms, I should say.
Shouldn't that be something you may want to include? That you were selected as? Okay, that's not bragging. That's just reporting. Right. And then people are going to say, hey, what'd you do to earn that? Then you can talk about, for example, this is the kind of work I did. I took this client and in 2 weeks instead of 2 months, we got it done. I think you got to make...
Right. I was just going to say, sometimes if we are nervous that we are going to come across as bragging, one of the ways I do that is I say, and I've been very honored to be recognized by. So I express the honor, that my feeling about it more than say, and the Philadelphia Business Journal year after year, blah, blah, blah.
Excellent.
So I can tell by the look on your face, Fred, that it was like, oh, I don't like to do that. So I thought I'd give you an idea.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Good idea.
Fred, you're an incredibly humble person, and that can come across just the way Leslie said that. What do we learn about you from what you said? That you're humble, that you were honored, right? Okay, let's move on. What's next, Zoe? Next group. Thanks, Fred.
Helen, Lisa, and Susan.
Aha.
I think Lisa should go. I think what do you think, Helen?
Sure.
She had it all together.
There you go, Fisher. You're on deck.
That's pretty funny. Okay, so bear with me as I read through my chicken scratch. They had to do the same as I stumble over my words here because it's not the most legible. Okay, so I drive transformation in can't read it. See, I drive transformation of operational processes and inspire teams to exceed their potential. Most recently, I've integrated the acquisition of a failing entity with $25 million in revenue and turned it into a profitable business unit.
There we go. What do you think, group? Yeah, Patrick's clapping for you.
I thought it was really good, especially for a first shot at it.
Yeah, and it makes me want to. It makes me want to ask, how did you do that?
Yeah, that's great.
It can't be too much more succinct and powerful. I mean, that's like 2 or 3 sentences. That was great.
That's part of who Lisa is, direct and to the point.
Right.
Baroque architecture is not her thing. Very lean, very modern, right to the point. Very well done, Lisa. Great. Next group.
Great, thanks.
That was Jory, Leslie, and Rich.
Who's going to speak up?
Leslie.
Okay, humble bragging. Come on, Lisa. Leslie, let's go.
You're muted, Leslie.
Thank you. I coach senior leaders and their teams, helping them to adopt positive leadership behaviors, which expands employee engagement and decreases turnover. Last quarter, I coached the CEO and her team in a large multi-million-dollar foundation experiencing high levels of employee overwhelm and burnout. I was able to deliver feedback to the CEO in a way that enabled her to understand the problem and with her team effectively address it by engaging everyone in the organization in solutions.
All right, Jury likes it. What's the group thinking?
Any way you can monetize it, like reduction of attrition? I know that's kind of a lot to ask, but anything like that you can
Leslie, even if you had a quote from the CEO, just you don't have to. Susie wants some proof, more proof, and if you get a third-party attribution from the leader, I mean that says a lot. So you might be able to do that. Have somebody else brag for you, Leslie.
Okay, yeah, that's a little easier. Although I do know there were 2 people who were planning to leave during the focus groups I did, and they didn't leave. But that's a lot of words. So
okay,
well, that's
reducing reducing potential turnover. Yes, it's
so you saved that company at least their full salary in expenditure, because that's what it takes to rehire for that position, plus whatever it would take to scale them up.
Right.
So that's at least, you saved them at least that amount of money.
Okay.
Just remember,
a couple $100,000. Oh.
Yeah.
Just remember, the men and women that protect the goal in soccer or field hockey or hockey, they don't score goals. They stop them so their team doesn't have to produce more goals.
Thank you.
Yeah,
all right, great.
What we've asked a lot of folks is, tell me how you did that. I think if you could take the chunk of how you did it out and hit with, back to Susie's point, here's the result. People can say, wow, okay, how'd you do that? And then you get to tell the story, and now you start the conversation. And that would make it more succinct and probably a little punchier.
Okay. Although, so that's an interesting question. Is that better, or is it better that people know I was able to deliver hard feedback to a CEO that was accepted? Is it important to get that out in case someone doesn't ask me how? I don't know the answer.
Well, I think that piece of it, but that was a small portion of the path. And I think that's a good point though, Leslie.
Yeah, I could just say that and not say then what happened afterwards. Okay, great.
I think where Bob is going is something that I said when we were together in our breakout group. Force yourself to think about telling what you do and how you do it to a 5th grader.
Right.
Good. That's a good point. I think if you tell them the result first, then it will compel them to ask you how you did it, and you can feather in that part about I gave the CEO strong feedback, and that's how you did it.
I think Charlie, getting back to one of those guys. I think Charlie, going back to that opening with a question.
Yes.
I think that's very, very effective, because it gets them kind of off guard, gets them thinking, and gets them prepared to engage in what hopefully triggers a positive conversation.
Yeah.
Can I say something about that? And maybe I just have to get over thinking this way. But when someone walks up to me at a networking event and asks me a question, I just immediately am ready for a sales pitch. Maybe that's just been my experience, and I have to get over making that assumption. But that's why it's not comfortable for me to lead off with a question.
I think you're right, Leslie. I think what I would do is start out on a softer note, maybe a warm, social stuff, and then just say, let me hear a little bit more about you. And by the way, and then maybe, kind of transition into it. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Coming out right out of the guns, that's going to be intimidating.
So listen, we all are trying to find our voice, our authentic voice, and we have to play around with it and experiment with it. So the fact that you're sensitive to that, Leslie, means that you just have to experiment and figure out what it is. But I think that there's lots of good advice that we're getting. Next group, Zoe.
Bruce, Eleanor, and Susie.
All right, who's going to go?
They always choose the windiest one, so that's me.
Okay. We'll be the judge of that, Susie.
Okay. Okay. I create and maintain long-term trusted relationships with business partners that result in measurable and recurring success. As an example, there was a belief in my company that we did not need any more distribution partners and had visibility to all of our end users. I was not convinced of that. And where there was a potential channel partner that we could authorize that was doing quite well. It had strong concerns among our internal team and our existing channel partners. If we authorized them, then it would take business away. I worked with them behind the scenes for 2 years, and I allayed the concerns of both the internal team and our existing channel partners. It resulted in $3.8 million, and it delivered our forecast for that year. They remain a top 10 channel partner.
So I want to ask the group, well done, Susie. Did Susie include her how in her statement?
Yes. Well, no, not just the path, but not the details of the how.
Okay.
It was really good. The beginning was very intriguing. And at the end, of course, when you had the 3.8 million, but it was too long in the middle.
Yeah.
Cut out about most of that.
Yeah, you lead with a 3.8 million. That makes me lean in, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
You're right. You're right. I just gave that information. You think I would do that myself.
I actually didn't quite understand. I didn't understand, Susie, what you actually did, though. In the opening statement, you said you build lasting relationships.
It's
but I
business
think you all have
development.
to do.
What?
Okay. So somewhere I'd put that in there that it's more on the development side, because I
Okay.
started thinking you were in supply chain based on your, with channel partners, and I really wasn't sure what you did.
So it's I work with our distributors to increase sales for both of us by creating programs and then onboarding distributors, new distributors.
So you
There it
need
is.
strategic
There it is, yeah.
partnerships.
Yeah.
There it is. There it is. You just said it.
What did I just say?
Hey,
We
the
got
good
it on
news.
recording.
I've got it for you, Susie.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Don't worry about it. Okay. Thank you, Susie. Next.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
That was Carol and Jody.
All right.
Where are you?
Yeah. So probably as typical with two people in a breakout room, it became a conversation.
Yes,
and
it did.
Jody, I thought Jody had a great story, and actually it was condensed, and it immediately made me react and actually alter what I do statement was, because I found a way to connect to him based on what he said. So I thought that was an interesting, I think that was an interesting learning that I wanted to share, is that by engaging him to go first, it enabled me to just like lock into how we could relate to one another as far as what we did.
Carol, I thought that was a very clever way of saying, Jody, tell us what you said. We all want to hear from Jody now, thanks to Carol.
We do, yes. He
well, as
impressed the hell out of me.
Carol said, it was more of a conversation, and I start off with saying that every time I go through this process, it's agonizing to me, because trying to distill those things, and Charlie Timmons is the best person in the universe to peel back the layers and tell you or give you insight as to what you are and how you do it. And he's been really terrifically helpful to me in the past. But just as because I've had so much experience in sales and nonprofit and mostly in for-profit world, and I've been very successful in those areas. And we started to realize when Carol and I were talking, by the way, it was a pleasure talking to you, Carol. You're a fascinating lady, and I'm definitely going to read your books. But I started talking about how can I distill what I've done in all this time? And it came to me, it became apparent that I'm a successful sales leader in both the for-profit and nonprofit world. And I'm the guy that you're really looking for if you're doing a turnaround situation with your sales teams, or if you're looking for a startup, because I've really shined in that area, and I've been able to build a broadcast network in Atlanta from nothing to one of the top 3 stations in the United States with the PAX network. I've done that with Raycom. WTVR was the bottom 3 stations of the 33 station group. And within 2 years, I was able to help steer and commandeer that into one of the top 3 stations in that company within 2 years. So I've had some very successful results doing that. But obviously, this is not all of my speech, but I need to refine this, Charlie, and love to talk to you a little bit more about that, because I'm having some difficulties distilling it.
Jody, let's have the audience here give you some advice based on what you're saying. Anybody have advice for Jody based on what he shared?
Your talking is flowing very naturally and free, and that's really very nice. But of course, it's too long, but it's good. Sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Got a great value
is too
statement.
Long. It is too long.
Patrick, what part was too long? What I do well, or the evidence?
I think both, actually.
Okay.
It's going to be cutting in both ends of it.
Okay.
I again was a little confused on, and maybe it's more jargon. I think you said PAC and stations, and I don't know what that field is that you're actually in.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. It's Paxson Television. That was started a number of years ago. As a matter of fact, after the Columbine incident, they wanted to go to lighter TV, so they used to joke about it being CBS Light, because they used to rerun, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Man, and Murder, She Wrote, and things like that, because they wanted family viewing. And it was very popular at that time. And I had an opportunity to do this startup in Atlanta, which is one of the toughest media markets in the country. And you find out who your friends are. But most of my career was in broadcasting and TV sales and sales management. So that's what that was, Lisa. Sorry for not.
No, that's okay.
Deciphering that.
Because you're going to talk to people like me, and we're going to go, huh?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know what that is. Good point. Thank you.
A question. Zoe, do we have any more groups to hear from?
No, that was the last one.
Okay. So what I did was I decided not to go into another breakout where you would go back in with your original group. I used the whole group to provide feedback. Now, everybody has heard everybody else's, at least one story from a group. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is refine this, because the next Beacon event where we have to go around the Zoom room and everybody introduces yourself, use this as part of your introduction. Because what you want to do is stimulate interest, where people seek you out and say, I want to learn more about this Jody guy. This is kind of interesting. Because Jody, I think the story about the Paxson Network, how it came into being, etc., that's a great story, which allows me to segue into the next portion of our talk today. All right? So let's go there. So what I'd like you to do, and that what we're trying to do in a large group, is to rethink your statement. Put in words, phrases, or sentences that may share with you what's your why, what's your purpose, why do you do it, right? What additional value others can gain from you. What's your distinctive difference? What separates you from others? What kind of collateral benefits are there for stakeholders? These things add texture, perspective, depth, intrigue, and stickiness to what was that original two-stage narrative.
Charlie, do you want me to put the slide up?
Which slide?
The slide that tells them the exercise for writing what you were just saying.
Oh, I thought I had the deck here.
No, we're not seeing it.
Okay, so let me go back in then.
You go to screen share. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was in screen share, gang. Sorry.
I don't have to get specific about my industry, or
right.
It keeps me open to other things.
All right. Okay. Is this what you wanted?
Yeah, we're seeing the facts tell stories sell now slide.
Right. Good. Okay, so let's move on. So we talked up to this point about these two parts of the expertise statement. Now we're going to go into what commonly happens when Jody tells what he does. Somebody said, okay, can you share an example with me? They want a story, Jody. They want a story. So that's what we're going to go into now. Facts tell, stories sell. We don't remember all the facts, but we remember distinctive things about stories that we share. So think about what people just shared. What's still sticky about Maria? What's sticky about some of the other people that may have spoken so far? All right. Because stories enable us to do these things. Tell people who we are. For what expertise should they come to us? What we're good at, what value we deliver, what kinds of opportunities are a good fit for us, and what you want to be known for. The story, implicit in the story, are the answers to these particular questions when we put a story together well. Our stories brings our successes, talents, values, and purpose out of the shadows. I love this concept. Out of the shadows into full view for those who matter most to us. So we're trying to get buy-in from them. We're trying to get them to be our advocate. And stories are the best way to do that. This is how they get to know, like, and trust us, is what we're trying to do through these networking meetings. So what we're going to do is share with you some of the stories that were shared by some of our members during the research portion of Beacon Navigator. So you're going to hear from 3 different people about their particular story. Take it away, Zoe.
This is Harris Gupin's story. And his is an example of asking questions of others to understand how expertise might be of value to them. And he's a franchise coach. So this is in his words. I went to a networking group for financial executives where many are in transition or contemplating leaving corporate America. I got there early and struck up a conversation with the gentleman at the bar. I focused on him, asking questions to find out who he was, what he did, and what he was doing presently. That naturally led to him asking me what I do, and he was interested in learning more about my work as a franchise coach. I asked him if he'd like to get together for a cup of coffee and talk further. He agreed and became a client who's exploring different franchise opportunities.
So what did we learn about Harris from that little story that Zoe shared? You don't have to shout out, but just think about, what did we learn about him, about the kind of franchise coach he is, how he operates, how he deals with people?
He's curious and he spends time.
Pardon?
He's curious and he spends time with individuals.
Okay, good takeaway. What else?
No pressure, no hype.
Eric,
Yep.
okay.
Very
And
casual.
those of you that have met with Harris and had that opportunity, you know that's his MO.
And he is very purposeful. I mean, he goes into every networking event geared to finding someone to talk to.
And probably takes a look at who's going to be at that event so he can then single out the people he most wants to speak with.
Yep.
Great point. Okay, let's move on. Our second member says that we want to talk about yourself in a compelling way that makes people ask questions in order to learn more. So this story is an example of talking about yourself in a compelling way that makes people ask questions of you to learn more. And it comes from Taylor. Now, Taylor is now the founder and chief transformation officer of a new venture called Pinnacle Peer Advisory Council. And when I said to Taylor, how long have you been doing this? He knows he's been doing this his whole life. Now it's in a formal business setting. When he told us this story, he was the president of Fernley & Fernley, a prominent Philadelphia Association management company. And here's what Taylor said. I was with a group of 15 business executives who meet monthly outside of Philadelphia. Aware that most people did not understand our association management model, I brought the conversation down to an area with which they could identify. Namely, we work with leaders of nonprofit organizations to help find their time and resources stretched beyond their limits. So we take on all their human resource liabilities and responsibilities. So again, what do we learn about Taylor from that particular story? I know he's on the call, but you can say something, folks.
He knows his audience. He knew exactly how to fashion what he was going to tell them in a way that he knew would resonate with them.
And it may not have been what he originally was going to say, but he had to adjust. That's what I took away from it. So the more we know about ourselves and the value we can deliver, the more we can adjust how we communicate that to individual different audiences.
And he had a great result there too, Charlie, which was that he got 3 introductions out of that because he turned that light bulb on for people.
That's right. I left that out. My apologies. And the other thing that he loves, they offered to make introductions for him based on that very brief interaction that he had with people. So it was effective. Maria had shared with us that she wears many different hats. We're going to have different stories for different audiences. The net total of all these stories is it says who you really are and the value that you can deliver. Okay, let's go. Barbara Taylor.
Right. Our final story is an example of speaking as a subject matter expert at conferences and other events in order to make your expertise known. And this is from Barbara Taylor, who's an executive coach and a leadership development expert. Here's what she said. 2 years ago, I spoke at the local chapter of the Association of Facility Engineers, the AFE, on the topic of leadership. I was asked to present again the next year since, much to my surprise, mine was one of their favorite presentations. I made that second presentation very practical, and it generated great discussion with the entire group. About a week later, the AFE program manager made an email introduction for me to a highly successful New York City executive coach who travels the world coaching mid-level to senior leaders. We had a terrific conversation, and several weeks later, this coach introduced me to a senior executives at Bristol-Myers Squibb. To date, I've conducted 2 workshops for this senior leader and his leadership team, and I've been requested to send a proposal for a 3rd workshop at year's end.
What did we learn about Barbara from this story?
Open doors through speaking.
Yeah.
And what opened the doors, Bob? What do you think opened the doors?
Her credibility, particularly the second time, they brought her back. So she knew she was established, but she obviously was hitting subject matter that mattered to them. And they walked away thinking she's someone who, based on that alone, I'm willing to refer to a pretty high level contact in my network.
We need to give Barbara credit for aligning her message with the needs of the audience. Yeah. We all have to do that because one size fits all isn't going to work. Mm-hmm. And Barbara's great at aligning her message to the needs of the audience. What else did we learn about Barbara?
She engaged. She was purposeful in positioning it such that it would generate discussion. She was able to engage that entire group in a discussion, which allowed her to even, I would imagine, I wasn't there, but I would imagine she was even able to further demonstrate her expertise through that discussion.
Great point. Anybody else want to chime in?
She simplified it. She said something about keeping it simple or
practical. Yes, she made it very practical.
Right. I read it as targeted. She was very practical and targeted.
These are all great insights, just from a simple little story. The things we learn about one another that many times when we're talking are unintended, but people pick up on this stuff about us. That's important so they get a more complete picture of what makes us distinctively different. Thank you all. The purpose of stories is to get people to feel, to win our hearts over, which in turn enables to shape their thinking about us so that we can influence the outcomes that we want from them. And stories do that. The next day, we don't remember all the facts, but we remember the stories. What are the stories that you need to tell to get people to advocate for you? And here's a framework that used the first two stages of the expertise story, and we're adding a story after that. So this is Wendy. And she says, as a VP of product development, I help corporate executives, cross-functional departments, and team members understand the market, recognize customer needs, align strategy, and execute key product initiatives. Her evidence, she achieved 18% growth in brand awareness, 31% growth in positive impressions of the core legacy brand within 12 months, and grew channel sales by 40%. Whoa, how did you do that? Well, she may respond with a story, and I want you to read her. I want to read you her story as she wrote it. And again, there's a format to all of this. And as I read the story, you'll see that her story aligns perfectly with these components. She says, I believe breakthrough products are a function of contrarian thinking. I was charged with selling medical technology to the motorcycle industry with a focus on the least glamorous cushions that go on motorcycle seats. While our product had great market share, we were missing one of the most important aspects of riding on a motorcycle: looking cool. During the iconic Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, the trade show of the industry, my colleagues and I looked at all the aftermarket seats with their sleek designs. We realized then an outside-the-box opportunity was ours for the taking. Our SVP of Consumer Division quickly promoted me to the Business Development Manager role to make this opportunity happen. I needed to know what was the state of the art. So I pursued a relationship with a leading aftermarket seat designer. We spent a week in his manufacturing facility learning about the process of seat production. I positioned my company's patented medical technology as a way to improve the riding experience for his customers without changing the sleek design of the seats. I mapped out two mutually beneficial partnership options, dealing with exclusive licensing and joint product development. I invested additional time cultivating relationships with key designers, as well as connecting the design teams from both our companies to discuss potential design challenges. Eventually, we reached a proprietary agreement for a co-branded seat. Now, Harley customers can maintain the look they want for even the longest of rides and look cool. The seat company expanded their market share, and my company entered an entirely new product category that achieved our mission. What did we learn about Wendy?
She's not afraid of taking risks.
Not afraid of risk. Good, pushing the edges. That's what.
Very innovative.
Okay.
She's an innovator.
She quickly came to understand an industry that was outside, I'm assuming, her prior expertise, well enough to forge a relationship.
She never rode on a motorcycle until Sturgis.
Wow.
What else did we learn about her?
She's got a strategic business view. I mean, she took it from here's an idea, a challenge, into an incredible success, and understood the what makes, particularly the Harleys. You know, what makes them feel good when they're riding. It's got to look cool.
She got into the psychographics of the people that ride cycles. And she understood that. She had empathy for what they would experience. So again, not only does she get the strategic bomb, she also gets into the tactical things she had to do to make the deal happen, to get an exclusive. Anything else from the group?
This is a great story, but it's a long story.
I understand.
So how do you share it? How do you share something like this?
I would have to ask Wendy to cut it down, but this is her story. And this sits on her LinkedIn profile in a section called, under accomplishments, it's called projects, and it sits in there as a complete story, word for word, as I just read it to you.
So Maria, when we did the research with Beacon members to get their stories, we simplified this a little bit. We said, give us the context, tell us the situation, Tell us what you did, what you said, what you were thinking about, and tell us the outcome. And do that, in 3 succinct chunks, just like that. So it just collapses this story framework a little bit, but it cuts down on the words enormously. But you still, you heard the Barbara story and the Harris story and the Taylor story. We still got the gist of what they did and how they were successful with the particular networking behavior, right?
Yep. All right, let's move on. So this is, again, she's not a job title. This is what she does, and look at the kind of results she gets in the job that she does. Yeah. All right. So the story tells us how she did it. Delivered in a way that encourages inferences as to her character and her competence. It answers these kind of questions.
And Charlie, if that story were shorter, then she'd get questions so she could get into this kind of detail.
I agree with you. I didn't edit the story. This is what she put out. So again, we're all trying to find our voice. We're trying to say more with less, have greater impact along the way. So stories showcase our executive presence, the attributes of executive presence. These are 5 of the 15 attributes of executive presence. Our competence, our character, our humility. Are you listening, Leslie? Our humility, our authenticity, and our vulnerability. These are things that resonate with other people relative to our being perceived as executive caliber individuals. So again, what is it that you do well? That's an important component of the story as well. So for homework, because we're coming to the end of our session, I'd like you to start to create your own signature story that complements your expertise statement. I am open to getting together with you within 2 weeks so we can all share it and we can all work together to try to refine it so that you can then deliver it in situations that matter to you. So that's what I'd like you to do, is come up with a story. You're going to get a copy of this slide deck, so you'll be able to use the framework that we had outlined. And then sometime within the next 2 weeks, we can get together. What I'll do is I will, working with Zoe, I'll put out some of my available dates, and maybe we can make it, probably set up an hour, hour and a half to be able to do this. I'm happy to do it for you. I don't want to leave it hanging. But writing these stories is going to take you time. All right. The other thing is, anybody on this call that hasn't had any time with me, I'm offering 30 minutes of my time so we could sit down and go over anything that happened on this call where you might need some help getting a little more clarity around your message. Any questions at this particular moment before I turn it back over to Pat?
Charlie, just 4 quick takeaways before you go over to Pat. What have I learned? The importance of telling stories, giving examples, customizing our work, no shoe fits all, and really taking risks in both our written and verbal communications to differentiate ourselves from the competition, because if we don't, someone else will.
Great point, Taylor. Thank you. Every time we have a conversation with somebody, we have an opportunity to test a way of talking about ourselves. If it doesn't land well, okay, that's one person. And you can always adjust right in mid-sentence or in the meeting, try to come at it from a different angle. But we have to experiment, because when we deliver it well, we feel it. You all know that. You say, I nailed it. That's exactly what I wanted to say. And then we'll realize whether or not it had the impact you wanted it to have. Other people, questions, comments, takeaways from today?
Very helpful, Charlie. I never looked at this as adding it into a story. So always, I'm a very fact-based person. So I like what I learned today about making it into a story and gathering people's attention. So that was very helpful for me.
And Maria, you touch upon an interesting point. When we are in corporate America, we drink the Kool-Aid. We do things the way they want them done. And usually that is Nothing but the facts, ma'am. Tell me the facts, the numbers, when, et cetera, et cetera. And what we're doing is trying to infuse a little humanity into the story to reveal more about who we are as a person, what we stand for. That's part of people's evaluation of us. If talking to us feels like kissing stainless steel, we're not going to develop a relationship with people. And the stories help us build that connective tissue that's going to be so helpful in building the relationships we want.
Yeah, and Charlie, that applies to those of us who are networking, externally, as well as those who are networking within companies. I see Susie nodding her head as she knows from her 3M experience.
When you join a new company and there's an announcement that you have joined the company, they immediately check you out. And LinkedIn makes sure that you go to the top of the pile when they do that. They optimize your profile. And therefore, they're going to go to LinkedIn and read about you on LinkedIn. What is the story you're currently telling about yourself? What is the story you should be telling about yourself to have you perceived the way you believe you need to be perceived going to that new venture? Because you're a whiteboard with nothing on it until they start to interact with you. Then they start to fill that whiteboard up with their perceptions of you. Be in control of that. Other questions, comments? Okay, I'm going to turn it back to Pat. Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Charlie. Just can you advance to the last 2 slides? There we go. Thank you. So I just want to give another plug for the networking GPS. In addition to finding the definitions of the skills in there, the 8 skills, you will find what we call suggested development actions. So these are things that you can do just in the normal course of your networking to help you build this skill. And this one is a great one for demonstrating expertise. It's volunteer for opportunities within Beacon. There are so many of them, and it's a great way to get to know people and get to spend time with people so that you can, so that they know who you are and you know who they are. And then finally, there's a list of suggested readings at the back of the guide. If you could just flip one more slide, Charlie. Thank you. And one of the ones that Charlie was using today, and I highly recommend, is the one on the top of the list by Ann Baber and Lynn Wayman. It's called Make Your Contacts Count. That is a great one for people who are networking internally. And then Strategic Connections, which is their other book. And that's really the one that Charlie was looking at today and pulling some things from. But there are some great ideas for strengthening your connections with people and building that know, like, and trust very quickly. So that's it. I thank you all again for coming. I hope we'll see you at session 3. I also hope we'll see you at the holiday party. I saw Zoe just put that into the chat. Do come out. It'll be the first time that we're getting together in person in a very long time.
So I would also recommend people put into the chat their contact information, and then we can copy the chat before we leave so you have people that you can follow up with.
Pat and Charlie, I just wanted to pay you the respect and compliments that this was an amazing course. I remember this topic from the contacts count based series, and this is just in an entirely different level of the atmosphere. It just goes beyond anything that we've ever done related to Navigator, and I just want to great kudos to you too for really pulling this together and giving us this very actionable information that we can now work on in the next few weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Heather.
That was our goal, to try to bring this up a level. So it sounds like, at least from your perspective, we did that. Thank you.
As I suggested before, we're constantly working on our story. We're trying to make what we say tighter, more purposeful, more meaningful to the audience so that they understand us, so they can help us accomplish what it is we're out to accomplish. constant, constant, constant. So what we learned today, you can use on any call within the Beacon world.
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.